Hi, everyone. How are you doing this week? Um, we have a few of our regular attendees back this week. We're following on from last week's chapter, which was a great session. We went through the pain body, and I think I don't know if this is chapter 6. Yeah, I think this is quite interesting as it's basically a follow-up on the pain body, and it's all about the pain body. So I guess it's really part 2 of the pain body. I think Diana, you liked my comment in the group. I think it was you about my the chapter is called Breaking Free, and I made reference to the wonderful Queen song, I Want to Break
Yes.
Free. And Diana said, oh, now it's gonna be like stuck in our head all week.
Yeah.
It was.
It came to me as well a few times, like when I was sitting there, the song came back to my mind.
Yeah.
So I guess we can kind of get started, and obviously if anyone else joins us, but there's a few of us already, so I guess we can kind of jump in and see if anyone wants to join. Anyone else wants to join? I know there was one part, I lost my page, that I could start talking about. For this week's session. And of course, then we can kind of jump into you guys and any of your insights. But yeah, I thought I would start. There's a few stories in this. I like I like the stories. I like how Eckhart brings in a few personal stories in this chapter. And one that I highlighted was the story he brought up related to it starts on page 174 or 175 really. So he talks about his neighbor Ethel and how she knocks on his door, or the doorbell rings, and has this anxiety laden voice. And I think it's something like, yeah, so he mentions her pain body. He gives a kind of background. Like, she escaped from Nazi Germany when she was an adolescent, and many of her family members perished in the concentration camps. So, I mean, I can just imagine that this is something that's likely to bring you a very heavy pain body. And he talks about how, I think she says, she comes to the sofa and she says, they sent me another disturbing letter today. They're conducting a vendetta against me. You must help. We need to fight them together. And he talks about how he just remained present while she spoke. And the thing that I really like it's on page 176. So she talked for 10 minutes or so. I sat, looked, and listened. Suddenly, she stopped talking, looked at the papers all around her as if she had just woken up from a dream. She became calm and gentle. Her entire energy field changed. Then she looked at me and said, this isn't important at all, is it? No, it isn't, I said. She sat quietly for a couple more minutes, then picked up her papers and left. The next morning, she stopped me in the street, looking at me somewhat suspiciously. What did you do to me? Last night was the first night in years that I slept well. In fact, I slept like a baby. And he says, instead of asking what I had done to her, perhaps she should have asked what I hadn't done. So he says, that he hadn't reacted, he hadn't confirmed the reality of her story, not fed her mind with more thought and her pain body with more emotion. He'd allowed her experience whatever she was experiencing at that moment. And the power of allowing lies in non-interference and non-doing. And yeah, I really like this story. But I like that thing of like, the question should have been, what had I not done to her? And I think it draws on something, I forget what chapter it was, but it was a few chapters ago when we spoke about I think we were talking about kind of like gossip and the need to kind of like tell stories, right? And the need, like,
Yeah.
you come and you have this whole story, and I know it, like, among my friends, right? Like they come, or someone comes and they have this story and it's drama, and I don't know why, but I just have dating in my mind right now. Maybe it's because I started watching Sex in the City recently. I started watching an old series. But yeah, okay, the girls come and they're like, oh, like I this guy, what do you think? And like it's just this whole kind of like drama story, like, oh, like, I think this, or and everyone reacts and everyone has an opinion and everyone thinks they know what you should or shouldn't do based on their previous experience, or whereas like this incredible power of just non-reacting. And how often does that happen to you? How often do you go to someone with a story and, well, I don't know what if you're maybe some people in this group have some very conscious friends, and I do have some quite conscious friends, but yeah, it's people want to react. I think people want to react. And people don't really hold the presence. So I don't know if anyone has any points on that, or if anyone liked that bit as well.
Well, I just wanted to add that everybody in this group right now has unconscious friends.
Yeah.
No, nobody's exempt. I could tell you that. Even me.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what you're pointing out there, my friend, is participation, non-participation. That's exactly what it is. And we have to be really vigilant because our former unconscious self so wants to participate in all of it, and that is why we have to keep this group, because we keep slipping back.
Yeah.
We got to remind ourselves to stay present all the time. The ego is very clever.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. I think it's the thing that I probably struggle with the most is this idea of non-reaction to other people, because I'm a bit of a people pleaser, for sure. And I find it very difficult if someone comes to me with something to not, I guess, sympathize with whatever's going on, and to provide that sort of shoulder to cry on for people, and make a cup of tea and sit around and talk about it. And yeah, I find it very difficult to do out of that.
Yeah, it is difficult. And it's knowing the mechanics of that, because you know what? Most of us were raised to be nice people, and we want to make things better for people. But one thing that I've really become aware of is the tone in people's voice. When you listen to the tone of people's voice, when they tell their story, I can instantly tell when it comes from the point of view of a victim. Listen to my victim story. Poor me, they should not have done this. So when we participate in that, we're actually helping them to stay as a victim. And that's what we got to think about. And that's what Eckhart was doing in that story, was that he could see that she was in her victim identity, and he had to be careful not to participate in it, because it would have made her right. I have a right to be a victim. And so his non-participation in it is really, that it seems like it's inactive, but it's really a very active role that she had to take a look at herself. And
for others, right? That's one of the hardest things we do, is to hold that sacred space and just allow people to tell their story, but not get attached. Witnessing, really interesting, being with an older mother right now and young kids with little kids, and witnessing their journeys is all I can do. It doesn't serve me to get involved in their stuff, and it doesn't serve them. You're right. It's all about how can you hold that sacred space, because that is active doing, that is honoring people and mirroring back to them. I think is the best thing that we can do, is to mirror.
And I think that, as well as suffering has a noble purpose, and it's here to wake us up. And even in children, it's allowing them to make mistakes on their own, because if we keep telling them how to do it right, then they just live this superficial life because I'm always going to do what's right, but I don't really know why I'm doing it.
Mm.
You know, it's the learning that comes from making a mistake. It's that lesson.
Mm.
And I just wanted to kind of just carry that over, that same conversation we're having about that woman who has this moment of awakening. On page 177 at the very top, it says that in Zen, such a glimpse is called a satori. A satori is a moment of presence, a brief stepping out of the voice in your head, the thought processes, and their reflection in the body as emotion. It is the arising of inner spaciousness where there was the clutter of thought and turmoil of emotion. So, you know, what he is, and you know what? I challenge everybody here in this moment to, in the next week, you will all run into this situation with a different story.
Mm.
And I challenge you all to practice non-participation. It's amazing because it's gonna come. You don't even gotta find it. It's gonna come. We live in an unconscious world, and it's gonna come. And it's just an amazing, it's absolute freedom. It's a freeing moment to have caught it and to have glimpsed it. And then once we know it, we can choose to be there again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me actually, you know, speaking of stories, of the sort of anthropology of narrative and story making, is like Campbell, that go on. There's like 7 like sort of key stories that we tell in our lives, and in every book and everything is based upon those 7 key stories, and it's kind of like the hero's journey. And
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I guess that's a way of sort of pulling apart those stories, and making sure we don't fall into them, is becoming aware of these things that we're subconsciously trained in, I guess, from childhood, of this narrative making and this storytelling, that, you know, everyone, it's when they were at school or made to write stories, and it's something that's kind of programmed in us almost. And anyone who's had any sort of job in this sort of day and age knows that marketing and advertising and everything is all based around these stories that we tell ourselves. So they really, I guess, hold up all these subconscious stories in our lives and around us, because we're constantly being bombarded with it from everywhere. And stories can be a lovely escapism. Don't get me wrong, like I love, you know, watching a film and getting lost in a fantastic narrative of a book, or but yeah, I think it's that same sort of awareness as, you're reading a story, and it's not necessarily the truth. It's not reality. It's a story that we create for ourselves in our lives, which is built upon these things that we've been taught growing up.
Oh. Cher, are you on mute?
Hi. Oh, no.
Maybe I just couldn't hear you. I don't know if it was me. Sorry. No, I think you are. Yeah, I think it's a sound on your side.
Well, going back to at the beginning when you said, when you label mine, me, you know, I, when you bring the I into it, then you're an ego rather than being in your true self. So those are the stories. I think that non-attachment is, I was diagnosed with MS, right? I've never said mine, and so many people say my illness, my heartbreak, my this, my that, you know, my kids, all that. It's nothing is ours truly, right? Or we're all one, so it's all ours, I guess, when you boil it all down. But that separating, that's where you become an other, right? When you say my story and attach to it, then that's where that line happens. I loved that he gave permission at the very beginning of this chapter, that when it's recognized, it can no longer pretend to be you and live and renew itself through you.
Mm.
And that's just that for me was just like a huge permission statement to say, that's right, I don't have to attach to anything. That's my choice.
Mm.
And it feels good not to.
Yeah, definitely. There's a really nice in the Irish language, I don't know whether I brought this up before, because I do bring this up sometimes. So in the Irish language, you know, the way you kind of say in English, you'd be like, I'm hungry, you're owning like the thing and it becomes yours. In the Irish language, it's like, there is hunger on me, and it's that separation of this is not me, this is something that's happening, or something that I'm experiencing. And I think that's always something that comes up in my head when we're talking about this, how we use language. That there are, you know, other languages that do that quite well, but English is very, very like ego dominated language.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
I don't know if you guys want to bring up, well, of course, feel free to bring up any points. But there was also the story that I was saying that there were a few stories in this chapter, and I just liked the one on page 164. I don't think I have to read it, but it's about the woman who he said to her, on page 165, there's nothing you can do about the fact that at this moment, this is what you feel. Now, instead of wanting this moment to be different from the way it is, which adds more pain to the pain that is already there, is it possible for you to completely accept that this is what you feel right now? But basically, she kind of comes to an end of, or there's this presence, like I'm actually kind of getting to the end of the story. There's a presence in the room, and then the murky energy. And the thing that I found, like, and I remember because I did another New Earth book club, and I remember when we spoke about this story, and someone was like, do you really think that happened? The guy in the there's the guy, and he's in the restaurant, and like he says that the pain body from had left the woman, attached itself to him. He'd gone to the restaurant, and like the pain body had like found like the person with the strongest pain body to attach to. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts talking of stories on this one, but I find it kind of a entertaining part of the book. Like I find it kind of interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it reminded me of some kind of spooky movie where there was an entity attached to someone's back or something like that. You know, I think you know, energy is formless. So, you know, I don't know if I have anything really to say about that other than it, you know, it can just move around, and, you know, I guess that's about all I have to say about that. But if you've ever walked into a room and you've felt like creepy energy or whatever, and you just like, I'm not going in there. There's just something wrong. I'm just not going in there. So I don't know, because I've never experienced that myself, but I have experienced just walking into a room, or even, you know, it's even going to, you know, feeling other people's energy. He talks about that. Like I have twice in my life, I've always felt people's energy, even as a little kid. I just didn't have the words until I read Eckhart Tolle as to, you know, to put it into words as to what it might be. But twice I have, at least I can think of, where I have met someone for the first time, and it was like our souls met first before our human form did. It's like, you know, that voice in your head that says, oh, I know you, but I've never met her in my life. But it was just, her energy was just resonating with my energy, and amazingly. And I've also met people where I've never met in my entire life, and I just backed right out of the room, or I just made sure I didn't go to that corner of the room, because that person's energy was not pleasant to be around. And I used to always say, before I kind of knew what it was, I said, well, you know, I probably had a sword fight with this person in a previous life or something like that. I just don't know, but I can't speak to this person.
Yeah, it's like what he says about your pain body recognizing their pain body or something, and something in it that's part of you, and you just react against it. And I definitely know that feeling as well, you know, of both those feelings you've described, where you meet someone for the first time, it's like you've known them forever, and there's just
Yeah.
no awkwardness, no, it's just like falling into each other's lives, and it's a beautiful feeling. And then
Yeah.
the vice versa of feeling like, no, I need to keep my space from this person. I need to protect. I guess I would be thinking as an aura. I'd be like, I need to protect my aura from this person. There's something going on here. But definitely experienced as well, and my mother too. You know, that feeling of going into a space and there being something very heavy about the
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Feeling slightly nauseous and sick even in certain spaces, particularly like old buildings. Like we went to Blarney Castle here in Ireland a few years ago, and we went into the entrance area where there was big stairs going up to the stone, and my mother was immediately felt really unwell. She was like, I need to leave this room, like I can't stay here. And we found out later, like people would have been hung in that room. So it's like this energy like left over from that. I don't know. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's very it's interesting and profound, like how you can feel these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about
Very
feeling
real.
and
Ooh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, it is all about that feeling that we have that can't be explained. It just can't be put into words.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
Had a full-on experience. My husband and I, early in our marriage, looked at a piece of property.
Cher, I think your volume's a little low.
Oh, I think it's that silly. You know, I have to grab the other microphone for this. Zoom just sometimes cuts out with the Dell computer. It's like some setting that I don't know how to deal with. Um, hang on 1 second. I'll go get it. Go ahead without me for a second.
Okay.
I was just gonna say my dog doesn't normally sit on my knee when I sit in this chair. So I was just gonna say maybe because he did it last week as well. He could like someone's energy in their room or like us
That's
talking
right.
at Eckhart. Because he really doesn't come and sit on my like yeah, when I'm working, like he never does. And I'm always often in this chair. So this is
You
kind
know
of fun.
what? He's our mascot. You know, I don't know if Eckhart has a book called Guardians of Being. Have you guys read that?
I read it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, right? I mean, animals are so in touch. Like when our energy is good, their energy is good too. And where our energy's off, their energy's off. So here he is listening to all of us have all this good energy, and he wants to be a part of it.
I
Look at him
want you
sitting
guys
there.
to be with me all the time because he's a very anxious, difficult dog.
That's why you have him, my friend. You know, I once adopted this cat from the Humane Society, and I was scared to death of her for 2 years.
Oh.
She was an adult cat, and she had little kittens, and they had taken her kittens from her. And whoever she was before, obviously, I think tormented her or something. So she wasn't really a touchy cat, and I'm a huggy kind of cat person.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't touch her for 2 years. I would get a stick, and I eventually would be able to pat her with the long stick without her attacking me. But I waited her out, and I am telling you, she became the most loving thing. But it took me 2 years and a lot of scratches.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story.
That's right. It's in there. You know, it's in there. You just got it. She's just got to let go of whatever she had to let go of and trust,
Yeah. Oh, Cher, are you back with us?
Oh, yep, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, this microphone works way better than the whatever's in my computer. I had a very poignant experience when my husband and I were young. We went to look at this property, and the moment we went off the pavement, and it was kind of a kickback, kind of a driveway thing onto this dirt road, the instant we turned onto it, my skin started to crawl. And it just kept continuing, and it was a beautiful piece of property. It was a private little lake, had its own dock, boat, had a 3-bedroom rambler kind of house, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, huge garden, outbuildings, barns, guest
wow.
cabin, the whole thing. It was just gorgeous, right? For $16,000. So this is like in 1982, something like that. And it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect for us. And I kept saying, I have to leave. We have to get out of here. We have to leave now. There's something really wrong here. There's something awful here. I don't know what it is. This place is perfect, but I can't be here. And my husband's like, what is wrong with you? And one of the bedrooms had like half the carpet was ripped out. And we get to the end of the driveway when we leave, and he's like, fine, we'll leave. And I'm like, I just couldn't get out of there fast enough. We get to the end of the driveway and look at the mailbox, and I had gotten married right out of high school for a couple of years, kind of was my ticket out of Minnesota to get to Florida. And his father had shot himself on that property, and the name was on the mailbox. And I didn't know that until we saw the mailbox on our way out, and it was like, and then my husband just floored the car.
Oh
It
my
was like, get out of here.
goodness.
But it was so palpable. I mean, I could literally, it was just, I just wanted to scream. It was so bad. I couldn't stand the energy at the place. It was really terrifying, honestly. So, yeah. And those things, when you feel that, there's definitely layers that we are just so oblivious to of existence here. But going back to what you guys were saying though too about when you meet somebody or have that, those are our greatest teachers. I think it's really easy to go with the people that you resonate with, and that we're all lovey-dovey and everybody group hug, all that kind of stuff. But you meet somebody with that energy that you instantly have a resistance to, they probably have the most to teach you, even though it's hard to sit back and find that space to go, okay, this is about me, probably not about them. And why am I so resistant to whoever they are or whatever they are?
Yeah.
But those are hard. Those are I think very highly evolutionized people that can just go recognize that and stay there.
Yeah, definitely. I think like it's a good way to practice everything we've been reading for sure, having that presence and but yeah, it's very difficult, very difficult because sometimes you just want an easy life and so you don't want to be, giving yourself these challenges. It depends on where you're at and what's going on, I think, whether you feel like you can have the space for that. But yeah, I'd agree with you 100%. I think you're right. These are the people we're going to learn the most from.
Right. I also love the quote on 164, that when you can't stand the endless cycle of suffering anymore, you begin to awaken. So the pain body too has its necessary place in the larger picture. And I think that's part of witnessing other people who are, going back to that where you are just holding that sacred space and witnessing rather than contributing anything, just being present for somebody else, that's got so much to teach all of us, just in the big picture. And to be able to do it for somebody else, you would hope other people would do it for you, but it's good to know to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
But holding space, I think that's what this all came to me, is about being present and being able to hold that space for yourself as well too, and giving yourself grace to not be perfect and to have a pain body and to have all this stuff going on all the time. But the awareness, the more we can awaken to ourselves, the more we can to others. And like the whole new earth, won't it be wonderful? Won't it be wonderful when we do hit that tipping point and all of a sudden it's more of a conscious, wisdom-based society rather than this fun economic craziness that we're in.
Yeah.
I like where that same story, if you don't mind being unhappy, what happens to the unhappiness? So again, it's just like accepting everything that arises, which sometimes like I find hard. I just want Eckhart Tolle level peace and presence. I don't want to accept the unhappiness. I want to go straight for the big stuff. But yeah, I mean, we have
Golden
to.
ticket.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with the thing of where he talks about the space around the unhappiness, and I think that's such like a beautiful way to put it, when you're not fighting, I guess, the unhappiness or leaning into it, when you're just accepting that it's there, then the space grows, and then you're able to become more aware, more present. And I think, that's something, a journey I've certainly been on this year, with anxiety in particular, and accepting anxiety that I have about a lot of things, which comes from that fear of unhappiness and fear of things happening in life that you don't have control over, and the stress that goes along with that. And kind of like, a lot of my time was spent fighting that, trying to fight it. And it's quite, that's very active and a very like engaged with the pain body, and trying to learn now. He talks a bit about like finding when you're at that space where you can no longer be that unhappy, you basically open up this new platform for yourself, and that's when the change happens. And I think that's kind of where I got to this year. I was kind of like, I can't continue on this way, feeling this anxious about things, and accepting, okay, I feel this way, and not fighting it, and not going, I have to change this, and how can I change it, and just accepting it as a start for that inner peace, and having that distance from it. And that's a journey I've been on myself personally this year, and I just see it resonate so much in what he's saying.
Yeah, where he
Yeah.
says also the beginning of the end of the pain body, emotion in itself is not unhappiness. Only emotion plus an unhappy story is unhappiness. So if you attach to that story of your anxiety or your fears, or whatever it happens to be, then that's what brings it, I guess, kind of puts a magnifier on it, right?
I know there was one thing I was actually talking today with some friends about it. So yeah, when I was in my early 20s, being Irish, I very much like to drink alcohol. Shannon, do you relate also being Irish?
Yes.
I'm part Irish too.
Yeah,
My heritage.
I think we all are.
Blame the Irish.
Okay, best joke. Sorry if this is the only Irish joke I know. What's the difference between an Irish wedding and an Irish funeral? One less drunk. Sorry.
Never heard that one.
You
That's a good one. I'll tell my dad. So on page 180, he says, basically, every time you're present when the pain body arises, some of the pain body's negative emotional energy will burn up, as it were, and become transmuted into presence. So then the rest of the pain body will quickly withdraw and wait for a better opportunity to arise again. That is to say, when you are less conscious. And he brings up the example of when, after you had a few drinks or while watching a violent film. And I don't know, I just actually find that quite interesting because personally, when I was younger, I would sometimes, I would just drink too fast and I would get quite emotional. I'd get like it could get to the point where like it was just very destructive talk. I was quite aggressive, and I mean, I don't really know, like I don't really have much comment on it. I don't drink very much now these last years, but it's just very interesting that this kind of monster, this pain body, because I don't know, like I don't know, I'm not doing any kind of psychoanalysis, but I don't know where it kind of was all coming from. It was very kind of dark stuff that I would say, and it was very intense for people that had to kind of deal with me. Not every time that I drank, um, but yeah, it was just kind of a reflection. And there are many people like that. There are many people that use alcohol. Like I wasn't using alcohol to let out emotions. I was just like
You're
immature
just
and
young.
was just young and silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think, yeah, I've definitely been there as well. You know, it's interesting because I have, like, obviously, you know very well, Anne Marie, I've done a lot of kind of therapy and psychological work on my side of things. And, you know, it's transpired that I have, like, although depending on what you believe, to do with what we're reading, but I have ADHD for sure. And it was kind of like this thing of, I think as a woman as well, like kind of this idea of masking a lot, like in my daily life, and masking emotions, and like being in a society that doesn't allow you to share that. And then it was coming out, then that pain body was coming out when I was drinking.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's less of us there to kind of keep it contained.
Mm.